the idea of where my feelings lie on the subject. So Zoe, on antelope and bovids, so the buffalo and the antelope, bone all the way to the top, and that's what separates, or that's what makes antelope different from deer. Because it's bone, they can't shed their horns once every season and then regrow them. In deer, their antlers are made from solidified blood vessels. But in impala and other antelope, the growing process of the horn takes a lot longer. Now, the male impala that Karula has killed is roughly the size. Sorry, Brian, what is that drongo up there, just up above the impala? Bright yellow. Here we go. Oh, gone.
It was a butterfly.
It was a butterfly. It had caught a bright yellow butterfly. I thought it was some strange yellow-headed black bird that I'd never seen before in my entire life. That butterfly was so enormous. Right, sorry, back to the impala that Karula killed. A little bit smaller than this gentleman, but not far off. And as we said, probably due to the fact that the males at the moment are so incredibly distracted from everything else that's going on around them. Now, these 5 males that we have here have been pushed away by another dominant male, and you'll find hanging out not too far from a breeding herd of impala, hoping to hone their fighting skills, although unfortunately for these 3 young gentlemen, it will be another year or 2 before they are large enough to compete, but to hone their fighting skills at the point that they are able to compete for access to the females. And I always feel a little bit sorry for impalas or male impalas of around this age. The hormones are there, the instinct is there, and the opportunities are not, unless they happen to be very sneaky around the edges of a breeding herd that is being guarded by another male. I have seen it happen once or twice, where a young male has managed to mate with a female. They are sexually mature, they are capable of mating. It's just more of the fact that they are not big enough to compete. And it's interesting watching their reaction, immediately moving away from the slightly larger ram, not quite ready to give him the opportunity to have a go at them. And it's been interesting watching the impala flinch, or the males at least, flinch every time another male walks past. They're very nervous. Yep, see? Nope. Try and stay out of his way. Let's not cause any trouble here. Just going to keep moving out of your way, mister. Please don't get too cross with me, mister. Oops, sorry, mister. I'm in your space. As we are presented with this perfect view to give an answer to Shellbell's question, Shellbell was saying she's noticed a lot of animals have black markings or black outlines to markings of the various animals, and was wondering what sort of purposes they serve. Now, the impala are interesting because the black stripes fall very much near very tender areas where the skin is slightly thinner and where ticks would normally like to settle. So one of the theories behind the markings on the backside of the impala is that dark colors absorb more heat. They don't bounce back the light rays. So they absorb more heat, they get hotter, and that in turn attracts ticks to settle on and around those markings, outside of the more sensitive areas and within reach of, have a good scratch around that eye. That's not just scratching, by the way, that's also scent marking with a preorbital gland. Yes, those black markings might serve that purpose. That's the predominant theory on an impala. Personally, I also think they play an enormous role in visual communication. Black is a color that stands out very effectively in the bush, and it's a color that is used for emphasis, which is why the impala have black ears, black tails, and interestingly enough, those black dots on the back of the leg. Now, the ears and the tail in all animals are very important in visual communication. So even with the lions, for example, with their highlights of black on the back of their ears and on the tip of their tails, animals do they can't talk. Their language is through movement. And how better to emphasize your movement but by highlighting the most important parts. It's like emphasizing a word. Oh, you might be big enough for me to bully. No, maybe not. Maybe just have some lunch. That is why animals generally have black enhancing markings. It's amazing to watch how nervous these young animals are. Just to go back to finish off that question, the black marks on the back of the impala's legs, those are glands. They actually hide a scent gland that releases a pheromone scent when the animals are scared, and probably you'll find it's also quite swollen during this breeding season that the impala are going into. One of the theories behind those glands is that whilst impala, as herd animals, are being chased or hunted, they release a pheromone or a scent that the other impala can follow so that they don't become separated and therefore place themselves more at risk. And of course, all the while, flashing through the sighting is a fork-tailed drongo. You might have noticed one ducking and diving, a little blackbird, picking up all of the insects around that are being stirred up by the feeding impala. Right, I'm off to find some other animals. I'm actually off to see if perhaps the hyenas will decide to show themselves, since I've already been so lucky with Karula. And while I do that, interestingly enough, James is somewhere called Djuma on Cheetah Plains.
Well, Djuma Dam, actually, everybody, and I mean, there's nothing particularly astounding about it, but for the fact that there is a grey heron there, which is quite nice. And this is called Djuma Dam. Now, I don't know if it's related to the fact that the reserve north of here is called Djuma, but they all were originally Chitra, Djuma, I think Torchwood even, and Western Gari, which is now Vuyatela, or where Jamie is driving around, were all owned by the same family at one stage. And I suspect that's why this has a similar name. So, the heron will be looking for frogs and for fish to eat. Hopefully tilapia they quite like. Mollusks as well. So the odd snail, and perhaps even Pinchy Hyena the crab. But he, of course, managed to stay out of the way for many years until that buffalo sat on him. Beastly creature. They'll also eat rodents and other birds if they can get hold of them, but largely they're fish eaters. And that beak will be used not to stab, but to grab at fish. And they do it largely, apparently, by feel. The storks especially do it largely by feel. So you see him moving gently through the water like that. Now what he would do is flush a fish or a frog with his feet, and he'd feel that. Very sensitive on the feet, and then he'd sort of dive down or peck down very quickly with his beak and grab whatever he had dislodged. And so, I mean, it's really quite an amazing thing, that, because there's no visibility in the water there, so he cannot see beneath the surface. So it's entirely by the feel of his feet, and then a guess as to whatever he has disturbed, a guess as to where it moves, which I think is amazing. And a pretty unattractive call. And Monkey Man, your mind works in some ways the same as Gendre's. I hope not in all ways, Monkey Man, but you asked this question exactly as Gendre did as we drove onto Cheetah Plains this afternoon. Why is there a Djuma Dam on Cheetah Plains and Buffelshoek Dam on Djuma? Monkey Man, I don't know, is the answer to that question. I suspect that this dam was probably called Djuma Dam before Djuma was called Djuma, because Djuma was just known as Western Gari for a large proportion of its history. I have no idea why Buffelshoek Dam should have been called Buffelshoek. It's all rather a mystery, and it's the mysterious origins of these names will be somewhere in the annals of private property ownership and family feuds that go on in and around these highly contested pieces of land that make up the magnificence that is the Sabi Sands. Oh, look, 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 here we go. Brilliant. He got a little tilapia, I think. You can see them all breathing there. Quite amazing. And Gerda, you want to know, while we sit here, how many different kinds of dams we have here on Cheetah Plains. As you have correctly said, we've got a buffalo dam, 1, 3 in a row pan, which is basically 3, but we'll call it 2. So we've got 2 there. Then we've got one called Cheetah Plains Pan, which we went past. It's in a nice clearing. It's very pretty. And then Djuma Dam. They're all kind of in a line in the middle of the reserve. So we're sitting at about 4 new watering holes. There is one in front of the Cheetah Plains camp as well, but our signal isn't great there, and we don't really want to disturb the camp unless there is a sighting quite close by. Right, that was a nice little heron sighting at Djuma Dam, and as far as we know, Djuma is one of the sounds that a lion makes. So the 2 words in Shangaan for the roaring of a lion, Djuma and Vomba. And I think Vomba, if I'm not mistaken, is the much longer call, so the roar, the proper roar, and I think Djuma is probably the bit at the end of the call. Jum, 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 jum. So if you've ever heard a lion doing that, I'm only guessing, because so many of the animal sounds and animal names in Shangaan are onomatopoeic, so I think that's where that one comes from. Did you like that, Chandra? Did you enjoy my bass rendition of a lion's call?
Quite so.
Fine, thank you very much. Thank you, Simon, for your question. Thank you for asking me a question that I have absolutely no idea how to answer. And those are actually the best kinds of questions. You want to know the etymology of the word lion and where does it come from? I don't know. I think it probably comes from an earlier word, probably the Latin Leo. I think Leo is probably actually originally Greek, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't know for sure. And I think lion is probably a derivation of the word Leo. The earliest written time that lion would have been used, I can't tell you, but safe to say that I was discussing the other day that up to 10,000 years ago, the lion was the most widely distributed mammal in the world, other than the human being. Now that means that it was all throughout Eurasia, where we know writing originated. So I suspect, and I'm a word for lion, hieroglyphics, which is the earliest known writing that we know. I thought we might have a bit of signal break up here. Let me just find out where we are.
Just watching the clouds roll across the sky and having a look at all of the hyena tracks that are in the road. It's actually quite chilly. I was just about to put on my jacket when James disappeared off the radar on Cheetah Plains. How incredible is it that we've managed to have James up and about and busy with driving about on Cheetah Plains. This whole afternoon has just been extraordinary. Let me try not to get stuck in my jacket like I did the last time. But yes, the odd signal dip, the odd niggle is all stuff that we're working out to go. And the thing that I think I'm most excited about is an extension of what I have loved about working on Djuma and Arathusa, is the fact that we're out every day, twice a day, usually even if there's only 2 vehicles out and there's another presenter or 2 presenters going, not spare, but who are not working that particular sunrise safari or sunset safari. I just find it so wonderful that we have, because we always go out on tracking team, we go and explore. And I'm looking forward to becoming as acquainted with Cheetah Plains and that whole area as we are now with Djuma and Arathusa. I mean, on Djuma itself, We know each and every little game path. We know where all of the animals, the paths that they choose to walk down when they go disappear off into a block. And we've got so many memories. It's the one thing about working in a place for an extended period of time, that no matter where you go on the reserve, there is a memory, and a good memory, attached to every single corner. Like here, for example, on Sandy Patch, it was my first ever Nat.Geo TV appearance with Brian on camera, and we'd found a herd of elephants, and I was so nervous. I was absolutely terrified. I was shaking. My voice was shaking. And we had this herd of elephants, and most of you know me and elephants. There's nothing I like better than to spend some quality, peaceful time with them. And we just couldn't get in this block, and everywhere I turned, the elephants were just that one bush behind. And they weren't stressed or anything, but I certainly was. And yet at the same time, that is such a vivid, and now that I look back on it, such a wonderful memory that I can't even begin to describe it. And then if we go just that little bit further around to Sydney's Dam, and we go and have a look there, and of course the first thing that comes to mind for me in Sydney's Dam, actually there's a few, wild dogs twice, just emerging out of nowhere and racing across, and the excitement that I still get that feeling of excitement every time I go there. And that one time, of course, with Brent on camera, where it became something, we described it as the Blair Witch Project with his filming, because you know how Brent gets with wild dogs. And he sort of just forgot that the camera was focused on the dog in front of him. He was busy watching the wild dogs on the side. The dog stood for a while in front of camera and then wandered off. And the viewers were just left with this section of road and no animal. And that's what I'm looking forward to about Cheetah Plains, is it's not just the new animal characters, although that plays an enormous part of it, but it's the memories that we there and the sightings that we will be able to share with the viewers. And I hope that some of you also feel that way. When you come on the back of these live drives, you've been watching, many of you have been watching for years and years. And I can only imagine that sometimes when you come around the corner, you just have these vivid memories and good memories attached to the different places on Djuma, which is one of the reasons why we always stop and we talk about where we are when we're in a sighting, to give you those memories attached there. As it happens this afternoon, as it very often happens, some days there's nothing, and that's okay too. You can listen to the calls of the lapwings and a pearl-spotted owlet somewhere in the distance whistling away. And moments of peace like this are very precious. That being said, before our light disappears completely, I think it is time to head off and see if those, perhaps since I'm on such a lucky streak because I've been so fortunate today, perhaps it is time to go and visit the hyena den, and hopefully they've decided to be home when I come calling this time around. They've managed to dodge me over the last few trips there. And the hyena den, just to carry on with that subject, so many memories, so many different sightings that they all begin to blur into one, but all of them magical moments spent with the hyenas. And just a quick note on that, just to explain to any new viewers who've been watching over the last few weeks and would like to know why we treated Karula's cubs the way we did today, with absolute kid gloves, very, very carefully, lots and lots of personal space waiting for her to bring them to us. Whereas when we approach the hyena den, and we've seen hyenas at an age much, much younger than Karula's cubs are now. And the reason that we do that is because somewhere to dash. Battling. And the reason they can do that, it's one of the explanations behind why hyenas have evolved for females to have such high levels of testosterone and androgen in their systems, and why they are bigger than the males. One of the theories is the big mother theory, which essentially is that the bigger the mother, the better they have in terms of access to food. And I'm talking about size of the mother when compared to others of her species, not compared. Look at the little paw going there, pushing against mom to stimulate milk production. Oh, those sharp little teeth. Yes, mischief. Hello. Now, Teresa, just on the subject of suckling, you were wondering how long hyena cubs, and they are cubs because hyenas are more closely related to dogs than they are to cats. So rather than pups, they are cubs. Look at it pushing there, just like cats or kittens and puppies do. How long they will stay with their mothers. And the answer is it depends very much, again, on the rank, and it also depends on the sex of the individual. If it is a female, it could wind up staying with the mother for the rest of its life, right up until the mother's death. If it is a male, we've seen with Bella, and it's interesting in this case because Bella is the previous offspring of this hyena that you're looking at now. Bella is a male. Mom bred very quickly straight afterwards, and Bella's been on his own since... When did he start? When was he first on his own? Probably around December. So at about a year old is sort of the earliest that the sub-adults will start to roam quite far enough afield that we would say that that they are separated from their mothers. We've seen the sub-adults like June, for example, and the February twins. We've seen them roaming at a relatively early age as well. Around 10 months to a year old, they will start to move further and further afield, and by about a year old, depending on the sex, they will often be leaving their mothers, and the mothers will then have a new set of cubs. But in certain years, it can be up to 2 years that the mothers will have had cubs, and that will be the distance from their one birth to the next set of offspring. So with spotted hyenas, it varies tremendously, and that applies across the board with every kind of aspect of information about spotted hyenas. It is so variable from area to area and place to place. And we speak about hyenas being great hunters, and they are great hunters. And yet, I'm sure many of you are saying, but we've never really seen, well, we certainly haven't seen as many attempted hyena hunts as we have lion hunts or leopard hunts in this particular area. My answer to that is, first of all, we're not as active at night when most hyena hunts occur, but also the fact that they don't need to. We have got such a high concentration of lions in this particular part of Africa that they can go across and find carcasses that they can scavenge. So they don't need to, and they don't need to come into conflict as often with lions. You don't get those. We've occasionally had it, maybe, for example, with the Salalas, and occasionally with the Nkuhumas, where they've been pushed by hyenas. But for the most part, they don't need to risk anything happening to them. Particularly the Birmingham boys are known for going from buffalo carcass to buffalo carcass without finishing the first one. And the hyenas come behind and just move in and clean up the scraps. That's that's just pure observation from my side, working in this tiny little patch of Africa. Hyenas in Botswana, hyenas in the desert in Namibia will be a completely different kettle of fish. Hyenas in Kenya and Tanzania will be completely different from those. It's a totally different ecosystem. And yet, unlike lions and leopards, they show such a tremendous variability in the way that they are, in the way that they function, in the way that their hierarchy works. And Christy, you are absolutely right, looking at it from this perspective, and I think it's more than just the fact that the one cub is lying underneath the other. Christy's noticed that one cub looks younger than the other, and she says even though that's not possible, and you are absolutely correct, hyenas, of course, do not suckle any cubs that are not theirs, so they do not allosuckle. So both of these are hers, they are twins. What we could be seeing is the female cub on the left and a male cub on the right. That would be the most likely explanation for the size difference. Now, if I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken, just from observation, I have picked up that it seems as though one cub is male and one cub is female of the January twins. And that very often is the case with hyena twins. Now, hyena cubs can be very aggressive with each other, although recent research suggests that the statistics might not be as high as previously suggested, but there's very strong research that when two females are born, there's so much competition between them that one very often kills the other and you get one cub on its own. It doesn't always apply in practice, and research now is suggesting that some of it is actually caused by what's known as colloquially termed aunticide, where other females from the clan kill the cubs, particularly if the other mother is not around, and that cub gets a little bit too forceful, for example, with a cousin. It could run the risk of being killed by another hyena. When we first noticed the birth of the January twins, the one cub, if I cast my mind back, was absolutely covered in what was either a skin disease or scars all across its back. And it could have been this little male, if indeed this is a little male, that was being bullied and injured by his twin sister. Hyena females are, as I said, much larger. They have high levels of testosterone. They also have false male genitalia, which often, particularly in sexually immature cubs, so cubs that are not yet ready to reproduce, it can make telling the sex of the cub very, very difficult. Oh, hello. Who have we got coming in here? Instant submissiveness. Oh, I wouldn't stand on them if I were you. Just quiet for a moment, watching behavior of what looks like a male that has just come in. No, it's Corky. It's Corky, and here comes Madam. Instant show of dominance. So these are the December twins. Here comes Madam's twins. There we go. They haven't grown as much as I thought. I thought I was going completely crazy. Here's the matriarch of this clan. Instant submissiveness from the other cubs. And here comes one of her cubs to say hello. Look at Madam's belly. She looks as if she swallowed a soccer ball. Comes in, causes chaos, and off she goes. And now her two cubs have come out to play. I really did think I was going crazy. I was amazed at how fast the January cubs had grown. I feel a lot better now. That makes more sense. That we've got the December twins here, not the January twins. Although I still think with what my explanation still applies, because I have noticed with the December twins as well, that one seems to be a female and one a male. Ooh. All framed by a grass species that I have now looked up and researched that is known as a feather-top chloris. Feather-top chloris grass. Chloris family, a very picture. Oh, hello. Good evening. Have you decided to come and say hello after all this time? Peekaboo. Peekaboo. What are you doing, you little monsters? I can't see you now. Where have you gone? And while I try to keep an eye on what those cubs are up to and to make sure that they're not sharpening their teeth on my... Oh, there goes one. That's one of them. Oh, there's number two. And we're not quite as exciting as you thought we were. This is one of the other things that I love about spotted hyenas, is that natural curiosity that they have. People in vehicles provide entertainment more than anything else. And the older they get, the further afield they are likely to go exploring, and the more likely they are to come and harass visitors to the den. And I mean, that hyena giving off the perfect body language of a harassed hyena. Oh, taking me a while to reacquaint myself with who we've got here. There you go, submissive gesture even to a cub of that size. Cocking the leg and displaying the genitals is instant submissiveness. And they do that to show that they recognize the rank, because even though these little cubs are tiny, they are still high-ranking in this hyena clan. They've inherited their mother's status, and their mother is the head of the clan, the queen of the clan. Breathing there. Again, submissive responses. I cannot believe what Madam looks like. Look at how dirty she is compared to all of the cubs. She's absolutely filthy. Now, Madam is one of the biggest hyenas I have ever seen. Just not in terms of height, in terms of bulk. She's just massive. She's very dark in color. She's filthy. Oh. Hello. Where have you been hiding? Oh, this looks like November. Oh, sorry, we're watching here. All having a very impressive interaction with each other. Corky is now up, coming to join the fray and find out what's going on. Having disturbed her cubs. Now Madam sniffing her babies. Dashing about, and all the while November snuck up and has climbed underneath my bonnet. So November is here and accounted for, just distracted me. He's somewhere sort of there behind the bonnet. Let's head over to James quickly, find out how his explorations of Cheetah Plains are going.
Yeah, it is a tawny, well done. Tawny eagle, everybody, flying over, identified by the latest ecological genius of the Sabi Sands, Jean Recherding. Very nice. Beautiful. I think that's the same one we were looking at. We were just looking at him in the clearings over Mala Mala, to where some guests were sitting, enjoying a drink stop, a sundowner stop. And then off over that way, we've got some wildebeest, unsurprisingly, in the clearings here. And the sky coming in over the east there is something to behold. Look at that incredible cloud there. And while there's no doubt that a bright blue sky is truly magnificent, especially out here, seeing those huge grey clouds rolling in here is something special, just at the end of this cold front. So a herd of wildebeest grazing. They will spend the night here, I think, looking out for the Birmingham boys, possibly coming out of Mala to have a meal here on these clearings, or looking out for those 2 male cheetah coming from the north. Right, we're going to hand you back to Jamie in the den. I've got one more thing to show you on Cheetah Plains, and that will be the Cheetah Plains pan, and then we're going to make our way back towards Djuma. So this will be the it from these clearings for the last little while. Ooh, there's a jackal crossing the road, everybody. Just hold on 1 second. It may be the same one. 2 of them, apparently. They're black-backed. There's a black-backed jackal. Everybody, these are black-backed jackal. So we've seen 2 species of jackal today. Can you even see them, Jandre? Sorry, I'm just going to get into a position where we can see them. How's that? There's a black-backed jackal. And there's a pair of them, and that's what you'd expect. You'd expect a pair of them to be in a clearing like this. 2 species of jackal in one drive, that's awesome. Now I think you'll find that this jackal will be slightly more confiding than the other one. They're generally a bit more relaxed than the side-striped. So let's see if we can sneak a little bit closer. Keep an eye on him. There's the other one. I can see the other one still in the clearing, basically over my head now. Andre, my screen's gone black. Are we still live? There they go. There goes the other little one there, running across. What are they doing? They're foraging. Isn't that a beautiful little dog? So, I know the inevitable question is, can they interbreed with wild dogs? And the answer is absolutely not, they can't. But they're much more closely related to domestic dogs, for example, than are wild dogs. Please excuse my sound there, everybody. I forgot to undo my jacket. Now you'll be able to hear me. Oh, these are just so special. They really are an indication of a healthy sodic area. So cool. And they'll be foraging for basically any form of meat that they can find. They do scavenge. They are, you see them there, Gendry? Well done. So he'll be looking for any kind of thing to scavenge. They will eat termites if they have to, otherwise they'll eat frogs if they come across them. But they're really clever and cunning at stealing from kills that have been made by much larger predators. And the other day, of course, we had that unbelievable sighting of the hyenas and the wild dogs fighting over a baby kudu, and the jackal, black-backed jackal, first one I've seen in this area, came charging in and stole a whole lot of meat, and the hyenas and dogs took almost no notice of him whatsoever. So they will occur in a pair. Now we did see 2 of them, much unlike the side-striped, which often occurs solitary. That's so cool. All right, let's go back to Jamie. We're going to head up towards Cheetah Plains Pan before it gets too dark, and then we'll head back to Djuma. See you just now. Go for it.
Still with these hyenas and watching their interaction, it's some absolutely incredible moments out here. You can hear the squealing of one of them begging for food. Madam happily obliging, there you go, the genital sniffing between the 2 individuals. Such a clear display of the different types of greeting ceremonies between spotted hyenas. And now, curious and coming to investigate. Hello. Diane is watching on Twitter as we watch all of our different sets of babies come racing around. Excuse me, please don't try and chew that. I'm looking, sorry, distraction. I'm looking deep into these expressive, very cute brown eyes that are also full of mischief and are currently licking the side of, or thinking about licking the side of the car. Yes, I see you. I see you, little monsters. There's 3 of them all lined up on the edge of the car. I'll show you what I mean. Hold on 1 second. Let's try to do this. Oh, some of them have moved off. One of them's moved off. Oh, it's moved under the car. Hello. Yes, you. Yes, you. Okay. Show you exactly what I mean. There you go. Can you see there, Brian?
No.
That is what I'm looking at when I keep looking over the side of the car. Look at that. You see what I mean? Look at that mischief. Look at that mischief. Up to no good. Somebody, though, has decided that dinner time is a little bit more important than time spent. Hey, I felt that. Don't you be chewing on the side of the car, sorry. Just checking up on what the mischiefs are getting up to. I sort of feel as though I felt or heard a nibble of teeth. This kind of interaction to me is one of the most wonderful things out here. And we don't really let the cubs touch the car, which is why I'm keeping an eye on what they're doing. That's not a habit that I want them to learn. Diane, I was in the middle of answering your question while we were watching the multitude of cubs that this clan has managed to produce. You were wondering, do they produce babies all year round? And the answer is yes, they do. They don't have any kind of set breeding season, although you'll usually find that there are a couple of sets of cubs. Oh, careful now. Madam wasn't terribly happy to see you there. You're going to get yourself a serious nip on the bottom. But yes, you'll find that a couple of the females time their estrus cycles around a fairly similar time. And what that means for their cubs is, first of all, that there's a protection around the den of multiple mothers, multiple females. But that there's, hello, that there's also cousins for them to grow up and to play with. And the play that we witness, whilst absolutely adorable, is such an essential part of developing the skills and the strength that they will need as they go into adulthood. All of this play and exploration is of vital importance. And Diane, we've seen fresh sets of cubs in winter, summer, all occasions, standing on this female, having a good scratch. And hyena cubs really get away with so much. They, oh, whoopsie. Except for that one. That one came a little bit too close. They are protected and cosseted. They don't yet know much about their ranking, occasionally having to be taught the hard lessons. Oh, there's 2 there. I thought there was only 1. It's amazing what that dip can actually hide. What are you doing? Yes, you. I'm not so worried about the adult. The adults tend to stop this kind of habit. There's now a cub underneath the back wheel. We'll just keep an eye on them. For the most part, they tend not to be too naughty. Occasionally, they might try and grab an oil cap off the Land Rover tyre, but not always. What we'll see is that this hyena clan, as we go into the real height of this drought, we will see more and more of a population boom with the hyenas, as we will for all of the predators. Oh, put in its place, picked up and put down, but oh so gently. Might look like rough play, but when you think about what a hyena's jaws and teeth are capable of doing, and how much gentleness the adults display towards them when they play like this, you really get an idea of just how important the social and group dynamics really are. Now, Keith, as I try and... they're all right on top of me. Keith, you were wondering, with respect to Karula, you were wondering how close we are to where she is with her kill. The answer is we're actually very far away. We're basically on the opposite side of Djuma. What are you doing? That's where the axis sits. You can't go into the axle. No, you can't. Yes, with your big expressive brown eyes. Keith, we're probably about in a straight line about 4 kilometers away from where Karula is, which is in miles roughly about 2.5. I don't know, my miles conversions have got so mixed up in my head, but yes, it's about 2.5 miles. It's quite far in terms of distance. We're almost at the northern boundary of Djuma. Karula's almost on the southern boundary of Djuma, although in a sort of a very similar east-west line. Look how much fun these cubs are having. An incredibly exciting afternoon for all of us concerned. I'm trying to keep an eye on all sides of the vehicle, make sure that there's no hyena cubs chewing on the corners. Incredibly exciting afternoons. Our time on Cheetah Plains for the sunset safari is almost drawing to a close. So let's head back over to James and have one last look for today.
The sickle moon rises, in fact is now setting over Cheetah Plains, and as John-Ray zooms out, look at the subtle green colour of the clouds as he pulls back. I think that's quite amazing. Green clouds look like bits of cream soda candy floss floating high in the mauve sky. What are you laughing at, Jean-Ray? It's exactly what they look like.
Very apt description.
I think so. Then just quickly, everybody, off to the right-hand side. Let me get out of the way. There is Cheetah Plains Pan. Not much going on in Cheetah Plains Pan. I've no doubt over the coming months, however, we'll see many things having a drink from here. All right, so that was a little cameo of Cheetah Plains Pan. We'll head back to Jamie and her hyenas, and we're going to make our way back towards Djuma now, and we'll see you over there, unless we find something astonishing before we arrive back there.
One last look at the hyenas before it gets dark. They are having such a wonderful game that I'm loath to disturb them. They've all come and settled themselves right next to the vehicle. One thing we do not do is put lights on the hyena cubs around a den site. It just adds an extra layer of distraction in terms of the nighttime hours when there are big nocturnal predators wandering about. There's going to be tears. It amazes me how resilient these cubs are. That looked so sore. Those of you with puppies and kittens know exactly what those needle-like baby teeth are like. You can just imagine how that must have hurt. Well, I was going to leave the hyena den. It's very difficult to do when you've got hyena cubs all over the show. Hey! Oi! Did you just clock? You did just clock your head. That baby just clocked its head underneath the vehicle. I felt it. You felt that, Brian? Junk. You silly thing. Ouch. Shame. Hyena cubs. Adult hyenas never carry through that kind of behavior into adulthood. You'll never find Madam or Pretty or Corky coming up to the vehicle and having a sniff. It's a cub-like curiosity that they learn about people, and they learn about people in vehicles, but it never ever translates into anything more serious. So there's never been any incidents of hyenas coming in, for example, attempting to pull food away from a guest or bite a guest or anything like that. It's important to maintain that barrier with a wild animal in the vehicles, which is why we always talk about never letting elephants touch the car, for example. And with lions and leopards, they hardly ever cross that line. Hyenas are slightly different. They learn about the vehicle, but they never carry that behavior through into adulthood. I think we can make our escape. We're going to say goodbye to our hyenas. How are we doing back there, Brian? Have we got anybody we need to be concerned about? We good? Quickly, while they're all occupied elsewhere. I'm letting the engine run for a bit. And then we're going back. The matriarch would have had the best access to the food. Watch your leg there, Brian. I don't know what they've been feeding on. They've obviously found something to keep them occupied over the last little while. Maybe it's still that elephant on Buffel's hook that they've been feeding on. Oh dear. One of the reasons why I absolutely love spotted hyenas is that their social system, everybody watch your heads, got it there, Brian? Awesome. Is because their social system is completely unique among all of the animals out here, all of the mammal species. There is none that exhibits the same social structure. In Virginia, in Kentucky, you were wondering if the brown hyena perhaps demonstrates this social matriarchal system. The answer, Virginia, is no. They don't. They live in little family units. They don't really live in clans. They themselves have got quite a fascinating structure, but it's very, very different to that of the spotted hyena. The females are not larger than the males, and they will generally mate for life. Their offspring will sometimes stick around for a generation or two to help them raise the next set of cubs, and then they go off on their separate ways. I've been very fortunate to have worked in places with high populations of brown hyenas, and they are also incredibly engaging and entertaining animals, but they're just that little bit different to spotted hyenas. And for those of you who are wondering, we do get spotted hyenas in this area, but they're very, very rare. And as far as I know, only one has ever been seen on a live safari, and that was with Peter Pretorius. It's not really the right kind of habitat for them. They like rocky cliffs where they can go and den. I did watch an amazing documentary, which also puts the story that it told also makes brown hyenas quite unique. And it was essentially a situation where a female and her mate had cubs, and the mate was killed in some way. I don't think they could establish exactly what had happened to him. It was just that he disappeared one night and never returned. Might have been lions, I can't remember exactly what it was. But he disappeared off, and she was left to raise the cubs on her own. And then a nomadic male came in, and usually as soon as you hear that part of the story, you think things like leopards and lions, where the males come in and kill the female's cubs in order to bring her back into estrus, rather than wasting time investing energy in raising a set of cubs that are not their own. Because of course the predominant biological drive for mammals is to pass on their genetic structure. But in this particular case, this nomadic male came in, sat a long way away from her, and slowly got closer and closer, eventually meeting up with her when she was away from the cubs and obviously courting her, and then returned with her to the den where she was hiding her babies and proceeded to assist her in raising them. Now, that to me was really, really interesting behavior. And it's one of those things that just goes to show Dacre. Let's not confuse another Dacre for a serval again. That was terribly embarrassing the first time. Let's not repeat it. But yes, it's one of those little stories that's a reminder of how Animals don't ever read the textbooks, and they sometimes display behavior that nobody's ever seen before. It's never been recorded. Yes, brown hyena are a very different kettle of fish. Kettle of fish? What on earth is wrong with me? Stop for 1 second. That's not good. Let's go back a little bit, because you can actually see his fiery neck. You can see the fiery neck of a fiery-necked nightjar. And I'm not going to keep my light on him for too long, just because he will want to fly away. Nocturnal birds, there he goes. So like all nocturnal species, it is okay to shine a light on them. I prefer not to do it for any extended period of time with nightjars, so we just get a quick glimpse before they fly away. And I've been in the process of reading this extraordinary book on the subject of nightjars. An extraordinary book about the search for the Nat.Geo nightjar, a famous nightjar that was recorded as a separate species from one wing, found by a 1990 expedition of 4 Cambridge scientists who went across to Ethiopia and found a wing of a nightjar that had been driven over by a car. And they went and compared it to every single specimen, every single textbook. It was too large. The markings were not right for any of the recorded nightjar species. And they proceeded to approach various ornithological and biological societies to question whether or not it was possible to scientifically label and record a new species based on just one wing, having never seen a living individual, having only ever recorded that one wing. And it was a tremendous breakthrough in science that they were actually able to do that, following the sort of logic that if we can record different species of dinosaur from fossils, then we most definitely can record a different species of nightjar from one wing. And they have searched high and low for this particular new species. Nothing more has ever been found. None of them have ever been seen. I haven't finished the book. I don't know how it ends, although I'm pretty sure I've never heard of a sighting being recorded of that particular nightjar. And yet scientists for over 2 decades, nearly 3 decades, have been searching for it ever since. And that for me is something, that's the kind of story that absolutely captures my imagination. That's something like that. And it makes one wonder about how many, and we know there are, for every unrecorded mammal and bird species, there are hundreds more of different types of insects and thousands more species of bacteria that we just do not know about yet. And I think in a way I'm incredibly drawn to the constant sense of discovery that provides. And I suppose, in a way, that's what safaris are. It's a constant journey. The word safari means journey. It's part of a never-ending journey. As we head out into the night, one of my favorite times to be traversing, to be exploring, Tony was wondering what animal leads the most challenging life. Whew. That's a really difficult one. What animal leads the most challenging life? There's so many different types of challenges. There's so many different things. I mean, I look at Karula's little leopard cubs and how incredibly tiny and vulnerable they seem, and yet the way that they jump from tree to tree and bush to bush, the way that they climb, the agility that they're already showing. And I think about the poor Impala every night that are on absolutely every predator's menu, every large predator's menu, and have to live in a constant state of alertness. What animal? Tony, I don't know what I would answer. in terms of what animal has the most challenging life. I can tell you in the next few months which animals I think are going to have the most challenging life, but that's a very limited time period. I'm talking for the drought itself, and that will be the hippopotamus, the buffalo, the bulk grazers of this area. They are going to be the ones that struggle the most. The browsers that eat the trees will have a little bit of a better time of it. The impala will probably be the most resilient of the herbivores. And then, of course, on the other end of the scale, the predators will have a good time of things. But that's just for a limited time period, Tony, and I know that that's not exactly what you meant. And I'm not sure if I had to... Everything has a hard life out here. There's nothing comes easy, or is ever... One thing animals don't ever do, I suppose, is take anything for granted. Just by the way, if you're wondering what my evening plans are, apart from just in general exploring the different, looking for the various nocturnal species, I'm heading across to where I last had those male leopard tracks, and I'm going to see if perhaps our leopard hasn't decided to pop up. There's some wonderful nocturnal creatures to be found, and it seems as though James has found quite a surprising one.
There, everyone, is a flap-necked chameleon, as Jamie says. Lots of fantastic nocturnal creatures around the place. This is the only one we've found so far, and we're on the Cheetah Plains driveway. So, excuse me everybody, I keep closing my jacket over my microphone, sorry about that. So there is the chameleon, actually in Nkoral, so that's an Nkoral chameleon. So it's quite illegal that we're looking at him. But we're on the Cheetah Plains driveway, so we're going to do it anyway, aren't we? Naughty Gendre. So naughty. Anyway, a small example of a flap-necked chameleon. I'm not going to go and fetch him off there because he is an Nkoral chameleon and he'll take great offence. Be waiting there. Well, he'll be asleep now. And many of you, of course, will ask how on earth we've managed to spot him. Now, Gendre, if you zoom all the way out. Now, you can actually see him there, and he's changed, he's got a lot darker since we found him, and that's obviously what chameleons do. They can turn or change their colour slightly to camouflage themselves, but he is very luminous in the night, so it's actually very easy to spot them when you're driving along with the spotlight. Let's leave that chap. So as you can see, darkness has fallen here on Cheetah Plains, as it has on Djuma, and surprisingly they're not in a different time zone, they're pretty much the same time zone. And Mia, you want to know if there'll be any different nightlife here? Well, in terms of animals on the ground, I don't think so. I did see some civet tracks, but we see those all over Djuma. So, I mean, I don't know. I think time will tell, Mia, whether or not we have any kinds of different nightlife here. I suspect quite strongly that it will be almost exactly the same. Maybe in those clearings. I mean, jackals are largely nocturnal, so we've already seen 2 of them. And I mean, we will spend some time in those clearings as the night goes on, at least not this night, as the months go on. I mean, the chances of white-tailed mongoose, honey badgers, what else might we see? Well, we'll see various different things like in the clearings, but I mean, we can see all of those on Djuma anyway. We're now on the driveway, like I said, so to the left of your screen is Chitwa. There we go. Gendre taking an illegal look in there. To the right of the screen, Nkoro. Gendre taking an illegal look in there, and here you can see we're now exiting Cheetah Plains, and this is a historic moment, of course, our first game drive on Cheetah Plains, so let us play a small tribute to the Cheetah Plains sign. There you are, Gendre, and it is pointing towards the exit. You can see the arrow there was drawn by a 3-year-old child, it looks like. That's unusual, but the That's astounding. Hello, shellbell. Shellbell, one of the creatures we can see at night, of course, would be owls. And you want to know what kind of owls we get in Africa? Well, I mean, Africa, of course, is a massive, massive place. So I don't know what kind of owls you get in Morocco or Libya or Tunisia, indeed Egypt, or even the Central African Republic. But down in South Africa, I can tell you that we get many. And here, in this particular area, we get the following. We get giant eagle owls, spotted eagle owls, white-faced scops owls, standard issue scops owls, pearl-spotted owls, barred owls, barn owls, grass owls, and those are all the owls that we get here, shellbill. And once we are in a position where we aren't being approached by another vehicle, what I will do is actually show you a picture of those owls. So the ones we most commonly would hear here would be the pearl-spotted owl with its very distinctive call. What a pearl-spotted owl does, and it's actually one of the only sort of semi-diurnal owls we get here, so they're mainly found in the daytime. Then the scops owl, which is they're often heard deep in the night. They sit in the drainage line areas, and the giant eagle owl goes do 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 do. It's amazing cool. There's a screeching sound of the barn owl, and as you know, barn owls found all over the world. Very screeching sound that they make. Now, I'm not sure what a grass owl does. Ah, yeah. That will be a staff member from Cheetah Plains. Let's turn all our lights back on. Shellbell, before we lose signal, we may well lose signal going through here. Let me just quickly show you some of those owls, simply because it's so much more meaningful if you've got sight of them. Here is my bird book. O for owl. Is that right, Chandra? Yes. 236. Yeah. There we go. Okay, so shellbell. None of these we found here, except perhaps the African. Oh, sorry, we get two of them here. Both of these, the barn owl and the African grass owl, which actually look fairly similar to each other. They've got that very distinctive face mask, and that face mask, I think, helps to focus the sound, because they do use their ears extensively to hunt. African wood owl has, I think, the most beautiful call. Don't really found it here. It's found more in the forests up around the Drakensberg Mountains. There's a marsh owl. We could see it here potentially. Then these are the most common ones we get here. African scops is a tiny little one there. Tiny little owl, probably about half a foot, 15 centimeters. Then a white-faced scops owl over there, pearl-spotted owl there, and the African bard. They're very small. And then a huge, huge giant eagle owl there, Varro's eagle owl, 2 feet tall, 60 centimeters, and the spotted eagle owl over there, just smaller than that, about 1.5 feet. So those are all the owls, shellbill. And potentially, just potentially, you can see a Pell's fishing owl, and that is on the list of every serious ornithologist and birder around the world. The fish-catching Pell's fishing owl. Maybe sometimes, it has sometimes been seen on the Sand River to the south of us. Let's go across to Jamie and get an update from her before we go into the dip.
I'm very impressed with James, who managed to spot that chameleon. And the reason I am so impressed is, first of all, it's so cold. I didn't expect to see that many more chameleons. I would have expected most of them to be very much in hiding. But also because there are so many of these African vagrant butterflies sleeping on the leaves at the moment. I've counted about 10 of them, and they show up very much like chameleons show up when you first glimpse them. And I've been counting them as I go along. Look at how hidden that is on the tree. But when you practice with spotlighting, and when you're looking for something in specific on a tree, that is what catches your eye, catches your glance immediately. And for example, just sitting here now, I've mentioned that one. There is another one on the top of that tree. You see it there. Perfect. Thank you. Can you see that there? That little white shape, that's two, just sitting on this particular patch in Zoe's Road. I'm very glad that James managed to spot a chameleon for you. They stand out in a very similar way. Let's count as we go along and as we use the spotlight to just illuminate our path ahead. I won't stop for each and every one of them, but I'll give you a vague idea of just how many we're seeing at the moment. There's been such an explosion of particularly these African migrant or vagrant moths, and their caterpillars as well. That jumping caterpillar there, though, that's is that one? I have to go back a little bit, Ryan. They're hiding, or is that a patch of bird dropping? It's a, yeah, no, that's not one. Okay, that doesn't count. This plan might actually backfire on me completely. But it will give you a vague idea of just what we're spotting and what we're looking for when we're using the spotlight. And you'll notice that it's my path with the spotlight is quite erratic. And it's just a process of thinking where you're going to have the best views and the best visual and trying to cover the same amount of ground at the same time. And James has always teased me for my spotlighting technique like this, with my arm up in the air, but I also feel as though it does give me an opportunity to see further afield if I have the ability to, if the bush is not too thick. It's a little bit thick at the moment to utilize that technique. And other than that, we're looking for, there's another one, but I won't stop for it, to utilize the technique of basically catching the reflection of an animal's eye shine. So they have a reflective layer known as the tapetum lucidum. That is a way of enhancing ambient light. But what that means is that when a spotlight is shone on them, it instantly reflects back in sort of differing levels of brightness. And for me, the nocturnal animals, the civets, the genus, the lions, the leopards, the hyenas, their eye shine is particularly bright. It's almost like the reflection of a cat's eye on a road, a reflective sticker or a hazard sign. It shows up incredibly clearly, whereas the eye shine of a herbivore or a diurnal animal, and we don't, as you know, we don't shine a spotlight on a diurnal animal for terribly long, just because what it does then is it takes away their ability to see all that well in the dark if you shine for too long at them. So whilst it doesn't act to permanently blind them, it will put them more at risk of predation. Obviously, we don't want to interfere in that way, so we don't do that. And we won't spotlight wild dogs as well, for example. Or cheetah. So much for my moth count. I now haven't seen one. And as we come to the end of what has probably been one of my most extraordinary sunset drives that I've had since I started working on Wild Earth, Frankie tells me that this sighting of Karula was just as exciting this time round as it has been in the past. It's a pleasure, Frankie. It's an absolute pleasure. For me, it was a very, very special moment. I look forward to spending many, many more hours and days and weeks and months and years ahead with Karula and her offspring. It was so exciting, and I can't wait to get to know them as little individuals, personalities, what sex they are. Just seeing them today makes me feel incredibly fortunate and very comforted in the fact that she felt comfortable to call them out in our presence. But thank you all as well for joining with us and for enjoying that sighting alongside. It was 10 times more exciting knowing that you were all watching across the world and enjoying it. Big thank you to Brian for capturing a momentous moment just like that, as well as to Jerry and to Kirsty in final control, and of course to James and Jean-Andre on the other vehicle for their sterling explorations. They are pioneers in the field of cheetah plains. And thank you all for joining us. It's always wonderful to have your questions and your comments. I hope you enjoyed every moment of the sunset safari. We will catch up with you tomorrow for the sunrise safari. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are, between then and now, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow. Cheers.
Hello everybody, we've come back to Djuma now, and it was a wonderful time that we had there on Cheetah Plains. We're going to stop here for the last 2 minutes of our drive, and we have some sad news we've just received all the way from the States. One of our regular viewers, Matty, has unfortunately passed away, and that was on Thursday, and he was just 9. So that's very sad, and he loved scorpions very much, and he and Scott had a wonderful relationship. So Matty, wherever you are in the universe or the ether, I hope you're still watching us, and we wish your mother Rebecca and the rest of your family a really heartfelt and our heartfelt condolences, and nothing else we can say. I hope that you will derive some peace from the African wilderness I hope that you'll continue to watch with us. So we're very sorry for that, and we will attempt to find a scorpion for Matty, and of course Scott was the genius at that, but I will attempt over the next few days, we all will, to find him a scorpion. So hang in there, Rebecca. All our very best to you and Matty's family. Whew. Right, that's going to be pretty much it from us for the day. Thank you very much on that somber note for joining us on Cheetah Plains. We did have a wonderful time also with Karula and her youngsters, and I mean, no better indicator of how life turns than there is here in the wilderness. Big thank you, Jandre, to you today. Thank you very much. And Connor, the mobile tech crew. Big thanks to Final Control, Jamie on the other vehicle, of course, being filmed by Brian. We'll see you tomorrow at 0600 during the breaking of the African dawn. And last shout out to you, Matty. Hang in there. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.